Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Vivek G, Assistant Professor, Pulmonary Medicine in Rajareshwari Medical College, and also consultant pulmonologist in People Tree Hospitals. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Karnataka Pulmonology Association for giving me this opportunity, especially Dr. Satish sir, Dr. Holiraju sir, Dr. Sandeep sir, and all other KPA committees. So let's begin with today's presentation. My topic for today is oxygen therapy and LTOT. So let's go into the history, a small history. Oxygen was first discovered by Joseph Priestley on 1st August 1774. It was named as dephlogisticated air. He obtained it by heating mercuric oxide. It is being said that Carl Wilhelm Scheele, a Swedish chemist, discovered oxygen as early as 1773. Later on, Priestley's friend Antony successfully repeated Priestley's experiment and named the new discovered gas as oxygen in 1778. First used clinically in dental anesthesia as early as 1868. Now coming to few important equation in tissue oxygenation. These are few important equations. First being the arterial blood concentration, oxygen content in the arterial blood. Second is the oxygen content in the venous blood. Oxygen delivery to the tissue is the third one. Oxygen consumed by the tissue is the fourth one. We are more worried about the fifth one here, the oxygen extraction ratio. The oxygen extraction ratio is oxygen consumed by the tissue divided by the amount of oxygen delivered to the tissue. These are few important formulas you will have to remember in exam point of view, also in clinical point of view. So now next going to the oxygen cascade. These are few numbers which you will have to remember. This is the partial pressure of oxygen at sea level, that is 159 mmHg. Partial pressure of second one is the partial pressure of oxygen in the inspired air, that is 149. Partial pressure of oxygen and in the alveoli, that is 105. And TaO2 is partial pressure of oxygen in the arteries, that is 98. In the venous, the partial pressure of oxygen in the venous blood is 47. Intracellular is less than 40, and mitochondria it is less than 5. Now coming to oxygen therapy, it is the administration of oxygen as medical intervention at concentration greater than that in the room air to prevent or treat hypoxemia. Oxygen therapy is the key treatment in respiratory care. Goals of oxygen therapy: to treat hypoxemia, decrease work of breathing, and to decrease the myocardial work. So coming to the indication, where do you want to give oxygen therapy? So indications are documented hypoxemia, acute care situation where hypoxemia is suspected, severe trauma, myocardial infarction with hypoxemia, or just myocardial infarction where oxygen demand is more. Short term therapy as in post anesthesia, increased metabolic demands like burn, multiple injuries, severe infection, and many other conditions. How will you know? How will you know that the patient will require oxygen therapy? So it is based on clinical examination, pulse oximetry, and ABG. So in clinical examination, respiratory system, there can be dyspnea, tachypnea, cyanosis can be there, cardiovascular tachycardia, hypertension can be there, central nervous system involvement like headache, restlessness, confusion can be there. So now coming to the, so this is the schematic representation of oxygen therapy. So basically when a patient comes, you will have to assess if the patient is critically ill or not. If he is critically ill, as you can see in the flow chart, you can start on 15 liters of oxygen and reassess him if he requires intubation or NIV or any other higher intervention. If the patient is not critically ill, if the patient is not critically ill, then you will have to assess the patient if the patient is at risk for hypercapnia. So again here we will get two categories: if the patient is at risk of hypercapnia or no risk of hypercapnia. If there is no risk of hypercapnia, The target saturation you'll have to achieve is between 94 to 98%. So you can start on oxygen for these patients. If there is risk of hypercapnia, the target saturation will be around 88 to 92%. So initially you will start on oxygen and maintain the target saturation between 88 to 92% in patients with risk of hypercapnic respiratory failure. Later, after starting that, you can get a ABG done. If ABG shows if there is any respiratory acidosis, hypercapnic respiratory acidosis, then you can I'm sorry, if there is risk of hypercapnic respiratory acidosis, then you will have to see for compensation in the ABG. If it is well compensated, then you can continue the oxygen therapy and target saturation should be between 88 to 92%, and you should repeat blood gases after 30 to 60 minutes and reassess the patient. If the patient ABG indicates that it is not compensated, then you will have to go for higher interventions like NIV or intubation if it is indicated. So as I explained, the target saturation should be 92 to 94 in most illnesses, whereas if there is any anticipated or if there is hypercapnic respiratory failure, the target saturation will be 88 to 92%. So modes of oxygen delivery. This is the classification based on design. So it will be low flow oxygen delivery system, reservoir system, high flow oxygen delivery system, and enclosure systems. So now coming to the initial therapy in case of critically ill, ambulatory bag mask ventilation, that is AMBU. So a bag valve mask used to provide oxygen during intermittent positive pressure respiration via an ET tube or a face mask. It is compressible, self-inflating, non-rebreathing. Can increase FiO2 from 40 to 90%. The second one being nasal cannula. It is a disposable plastic device consisting of two tips approximately 1 cm long. It can be straight or curved, that are connected to several feet of small bore tube of oxygen supply. Now coming to nasal cannula, the flow you can maintain is 1 to 5 liters. FiO2 the nasal cannula can provide is maximum of 40%. What I mean by this is, even if the flow is more than 5 liters, the maximum FiO2 that can be achieved with nasal cannula will be 40%. The FiO2 stability can vary. Advantages with this is it can be used in adults, children, infants, and it is low cost, easily disposable and very well tolerated. Disadvantages: it is unstable, easily dislodged, not useful in patient with mouth breathing, nasal polyps, and can cause epistaxis. Best use: stable patients who need low FiO2 and patients on LTOT. Now coming to Venturi mask, also known as air entrainment mask, brand name Ventimask, used to deliver known oxygen concentration, invented by Moran Campbell. So as you can see in the picture, there is a air entrainment port which will maintain a fixed FiO2. So it works based on Venturi effect, which was proposed by Giovanni Battista Ventura, an Italian physicist, which is in turn based on Bernoulli's principle. So there are six different fixed FiO2 concentration, and it has been labeled 6 colors for this Venturi mask. First one being Venturi with 24% FiO2, that is blue, 28% FiO2 is white, 31 is orange, 35% is yellow, 40% is red, and 60% being green. So in Venturi mask, the flow can be maintained from 2 to 15 liters per minute. FiO2 stability is fixed. Advantage is fixed FiO2, low cost, easily disposable, and well tolerated. Disadvantages: limited to adult use, noisy, must be taken off while eating. Best use: unstable patients who need fixed FiO2. Now coming to simple face mask, most commonly used, discovered in late 18th century. Simple face mask made of clear plastic, designed to cover both nose and mouth. Patients directly exhale through the holes in the body of the mask. Volume of mask is around 300 to 300 ml. So, in simple face mask, flow can be 5 to 10 liters, FiO2 40 to 60% can be maintained. Again, stability is variable. Advantages is it can be used in adults, children, infants. It is low cost, easy to use, and disposable, and also well tolerated. Can be used in patients with epistaxis, patient who are strictly mouth breathers. Disadvantages: face mask is obtrusive, uncomfortable and confining. It muffles communication, obstructs coughing and impedes eating. Best use: stable patients who needs low FiO2 and patients on LTOT. Non-rebreathing face mask. The non-rebreather face mask covers both the nose and mouth of the patient and attaches with the use of elastic cord around the patient's head. NRB has an attached reservoir bag of 1 liter that connects to an external oxygen tank or bulk oxygen supply system. Before an NRB is placed on the patient, the reservoir bag is inflated to greater than 2/3 full of oxygen at a rate of 15 liters per minute. Approximately 1/3 of the air from the reservoir is depleted as the patient inhales, and it is then replaced by the flow of oxygen from the oxygen supply. If the bag becomes completely deflated, the patient will no longer have a source of air to breathe. Now, this is the non-rebreathing mask you can see in the picture. Flow can be up to 8 to 10 liters. It can be up to 15 liters also. FiO2 up to 90% of FiO2 can be achieved in non-rebreathing mask, but the stability varies. Advantages: delivers high FiO2, low cost, easily disposable and very well tolerated. Disadvantages: limited to adult use, risk of aspiration, potential suffocation. Best use: emergencies and in patients with high FiO2 for short term period. So, as you can see in this picture, this is the mechanism of non-rebreathing mask, and you can see in the second picture there is also a face mask which does not have a which just have a one way valve for exhalation. So, difference between both of this is in non-rebreathing mask the reservoir bag is of 1 liter, whereas in a face mask the reservoir is up to 100 from 100 to 300 ml. Now, coming to reservoir cannula, it operates by storing approximately 20 ml of oxygen in a small membranous reserve while exhalation. Pendant reservoir system helps to overcome aesthetic concerns. Reservoir is hidden under the clothing in the anterior chest like a pendant. Extra weight of pendant can cause ear and facial discomfort. This is one of the disadvantages of this reservoir cannula. Now, coming to transtracheal catheter, resides directly in the trachea, increases anatomical reserve, increase in FiO2, needs 40 to 60% less oxygen when compared to nasal cannula and catheter. The transtracheal catheter flow can be 1 to 4 liters, FiO2 22 to 35% can be achieved. The stability is variable. Advantages: low O2 use, no nasal or skin irritation, improved compliance. Disadvantages: high cost, surgical complications, infections, mucus plugs. Best use in home care or ambulatory patients who need increased mobility, who do not accept nasal oxygen, or patient where tracheostomy is done. Other modes which are used: nasal catheters, partial rebreathing mask, air entrainment nebulizer, oxygen tents, oxygen hoods and incubator. Monitoring the patient on oxygen therapy. Generally, blood gases should be repeated in all critically ill patients and in many other cases according to respond to the treatment. All acutely ill patients should have physiological monitoring using EWS scores, early warning scores, in addition to pulse oximetry. Monitoring in first hour, all patients should have their oxygen saturation observed for the first 5 minutes after starting oxygen therapy. If the oxygen saturation is above target saturation range and the patient is stable, the delivery system and oxygen flow rate should be reduced accordingly. Repeat saturation should be checked every 4th hourly. Patients who have target saturation of 88 to 92% should have their blood gas measured within 30 to 60 minutes. Patient whose oxygen saturation is within their target saturation of 94 to 98% do not need repeat blood gas within 30 to 60 minutes and may not need any further blood gas measurement if there is no risk of hypercapnic respiratory acidosis. Now coming to the oxygen initiation, step up and step down therapy. As you can see, we can initiate with nasal cannula here 1 liter based on the patient response, the SpO2 levels, the blood gas analysis. It can be stepped up just like we do in asthma, step down and step up. So in oxygen therapy also we can step up. Once the patient requires more, you can increase to 2 liters, you can increase to 4 liters. Then if he is not maintaining with 4 liters, switch over to simple face mask. If he is not maintaining with face mask, then you can switch over to NRBM mask. So while stepping down from if the patient is on Venturi, then reduce the concentration of Venturi from 60, 40 to 35, 38, 24, and then you can go for a simple face mask, then a nasal cannula, and titrate the oxygen therapy. Now coming to long-term oxygen therapy. So indications of this long-term oxygen therapy, absolute indications are PaO2 of less than 55 mm of Hg or SpO2 of less than 88%, or in presence of cor pulmonale with PaO2 of 55 to 59 mm of Hg and SpO2 less than 89%, with ECG evidence of right atrial enlargement, hematocrit of more than 55%, and CHF. Only in specific situation where PaO2 is more than 60 mm of Hg or SpO2 more than 90%, these are with lung disease or sleep apnea who have nocturnal desaturation that is not corrected by CPAP. If the patient is if the patient has normal oxygen levels at rest but desaturates during exercise or sleep, for these patients supplemental oxygen should be prescribed if PaO2 falls less than 55 mm of Hg during exercise or sleep. Also consider nasal CPAP or bilevel positive airway pressure. Initiating LTOT, measure ABG after breathing at room air for 30 minutes. Pulse oximetry alone is not adequate. However, pulse oximetry can be used to adjust the oxygen flow and setting over time. Administration of LTOT should be continuous 24 hours a day with ambulatory capability. Exception to continuous administration with ambulatory capability include if patients who are incapable or unwilling to be mobile, requires oxygen only during sleep, requires oxygen only during exercise, or refuse to use. Devices. There are 3 main devices, oxygen concentrators, which we use most commonly, followed by liquid oxygen and oxygen conserving devices. Oxygen concentrators concentrate oxygen from the air to deliver to the patient. The air first gets compressed and drawn into the system, where the air is then cooled during a heat exchanger. Air is then passed into a molecular sieve where the oxygen is concentrated. It is then pressurized to 10 psi and passed through a bacterial filter and a flow meter before reaching the patient. This is liquid oxygen, operates at lower pressure than gaseous oxygen. A smaller and portable system, easier for ambulation, enables longer period of high flow oxygen. Oxygen conserving devices Pulse type, fixed volume of oxygen is delivered each time a breath is initiated. Demand type, volume of oxygen is delivered throughout the whole inspiratory cycle. Ambulatory oxygen system, ideally they should weigh less than 10 kgs, provide oxygen at 2 liters per minute for more than 4 to 6 hours, and be packed so that they can be carried by the patient. Stationary oxygen can be delivered via concentrators, compressed gas, or liquid oxygen. Choice depend upon availability, cost, and suitable systems. Now, as we discussed before, this is a schematic representation of oxygen starting LTOT in case of hypoxemia from disease progression or recovering from acute exacerbation. If PaO2 is less than 55 or SaO2 less than 88 or PaO2 of 55 to 59 with signs of carpulmonale polycythemia, in these cases you can prescribe oxygen. Goal is to maintain saturation of more than 90% or PaO2 of more than 60 mm of Hg. In case of rest or sleep or during exertion, the titration is almost the same. In rest, as we have explained before, the SaO2 should be more than 90%. In exertion and sleep, you can add 1 liter more to the oxygen which you have already prescribed. You can add 1 liter more. Okay. Then if there is any hypoxemia on the follow up, if there is any hypoxemia identified at exertion, if it is there, then you will have to continue oxygen therapy. If it is not there, then gradually you can discontinue oxygen therapy, given that the PaO2 should be more than 55 and SpO2 should be more than 88%. I am sorry, SpO2 should be more than 90%. Oxygen settings at rest, as we explained, as we discussed before, resting oxygen flow rate can be adjusted while monitoring SpO2 of more than 90%. ABG should be used to establish initial PaO2 with corroborating oximeter SpO2s. To ensure equilibrium, 20 to 30 minutes should be allowed after each change in liter of flow of oxygen. During sleep, determined by two strategies, flow can be increased by 1 liter per minute above daytime resting prescription, or nocturnal polysomnography or nocturnal pulse oximetry can be performed to support more accurate prescription. Exertion, during exertion, goal is to maintain PaO2 of more than 60 mm of Hg or SpO2 of more than 90%. Indication, now coming to oxygen therapy in flight. So, indication of oxygen therapy in flight, there are many chronic conditions like severe COPD, bullous lung disease, severe restrictive diseases, cystic fibrosis, comorbidity with conditions worsened by hypoxemia, pulmonary tuberculosis, recent pneumothorax, risk of or previous venous thromboembolism, pre-existing requirement of oxygen, patient who are on CPAP or ventilator support. These patients will require oxygen therapy in flight. So, before starting oxygen therapy in flight, we will have to do hypoxic challenge test. So, in hypoxic challenge test, patient is made to breathe 15% oxygen with rest of the gas comprised of nitrogen. So, the ABG is measured after 20 minutes. If the PaO2 is more than 50 mm of Hg, there is no indication of oxygen. If the PaO2 after hypoxic challenge test, if it is less than 50, then that is indication for oxygen therapy in flight. Now, coming to hazards of oxygen therapy. In central nervous system, the oxygen the hazards of oxygen therapy, central nervous system toxicity was first described by Paul Bert. So, it is referred to as Paul Bert effect. And pulmonary oxygen toxicity was first described by Lawrence Smith. It is commonly referred to as Lawrence Smith effect. So, what happens in the lung as well as in the systemic other systems. So, in the lung, as there is increased oxygen concentration, the lung, the alveoli can go for absorption atelectasis, and due to increased oxygen concentration, there can be vasoconstriction in the retinal arteries, and retinal damage can occur. So, like that, there can be myocardial damage, hepatic effects, renal damage, tubular necrosis in the kidneys, endocrine effects on the adrenal, gonads, and thyroid. Toxic effects upon enzymes and cells of central nervous system can cause convulsions, destruction of neuron, and finally death can occur. Now, coming to hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is the medical use of oxygen at the level higher than the atmospheric pressure. Pressure during the therapy is expressed in multiples of atmospheric pressure, that is ATA. 1 ATA is 760 mm of Hg. Most of the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, they will use around 2 to 3 ATA. Physiological effects of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. There are two important effects. One is bubble reduction. Second one is hyperoxygenation of blood and the tissues. In bubble reduction, high pressure of oxygen decreases the size of the bubble and minimize the potential harm, as in case of air embolism and decompression sickness. Hyperoxygenation of blood and tissues. Tissues will require more than 30 mm of Hg of PO2 for normal cellular function. Infected and damaged cells have lower PO2. Increasing the oxygen supply to these tissues will help in restoring both white blood cells and antimicrobial activity. And physiological effects of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Vasoconstriction is helpful as it reduces edema, tissue swelling while maintaining tissue oxygenation. Enhancement of host immune and also neovascularization. Now, coming to indications of HPOT. Acute conditions and chronic conditions. Acute conditions like decompression sickness, air and gas embolism, carbon monoxide poisoning, cyanide poisoning, acute peripheral and arterial insufficiency, intracranial abscess, ischemic skin graft or flap, and in burns. Chronic conditions like diabetic wounds, refractory osteomyelitis, actinomycosis, and radiation necrosis. Methods of administration of HBOT. It can be used as a multiplacer method, where multiplace chamber will be there. It consists of a large tank which is capable of holding more than a dozen of patients. Patients are directly cared by the medical staff inside this tank. Multiplace chambers will have air lock that allows the entry and exit without altering the pressure. The chamber will be filled up with air. If indicated, only the patient will wear a mask and will be breathing supplemental oxygen. The multiplace chambers are suited for management of decompression sickness and air embolism. And the second method is monoplacer method. It consists of a single transparent plexiglass cylinder large enough for a single patient. During the therapy, the oxygen will be filled with 100%, the chamber will be filled with 100% oxygen, so that the patient need not wear a mask. Because of higher oxygen content, most of the electronic equipments cannot be used in the monoplacer chamber. Now, coming to contraindication, absolute contraindication is untreated pneumothorax. It can cause gas embolism, tension pneumothorax, and mediastinum. So, before going in for HPOT, patient the pneumothorax has to be treated with tube thoracostomy. And in patient with bleomycin cisplatin therapy, in bleomycin it can cause interstitial pneumonitis, and in cisplatin impaired wound healing. In disulfiram, it blocks superoxide dismutase, which is protective against oxygen toxicity. So, you will have to discontinue this medication before going for HPOT. Doxorubicin, it can cause cardiotoxicity. So, discontinue before HPOT. Then relative contraindications like asthma, which can cause air trapping upon ascent loading to pneumothorax. Claustrophobia, congenital spherocytosis, COPD, eustachian tube dysfunction, high fever, pacemaker or epidural pain pump, pregnancy, seizures, and URTI. These are relative contraindications for HBOT. Now coming to complications of HBOT, barotrauma, myopia, damage to sinuses, buildup of fluid or rupture of middle ear, oxygen toxicity, fire hazard, and claustrophobia. So with this, I'll be ending my presentation, and these are my references, and thank you.